We're going to do the second chapter today, which is actually the beginning of the 9th book. Wow, out of 14 books of Maimonides' teachings. So let us begin. In the name of the Lord of the universe, God, create for me a pure heart and renew within me an upright spirit. This is a book of purity, Sefer Tahara. It's the 10th book. Sorry, we finished the 9th book. What did I say? Right, this is the 10th book. It includes 8 halachas. They are the laws of impurity impacted by a human corpse, right? The laws of red heifer, which is the purification if you come in contact with a human corpse. The laws of impurity imparted by tsaras, someone who's got the skin disease, that they also impart impurity. Laws of source of impurity that impart impurity to the places where one lies and sits. The laws of other impurity categories, primary impurity, categories of impurity. The laws of impurity contracted by foods. Foods can also become impure, as we'll learn. Laws of impurity contracted by kalim, by vessels. The laws governing a mikvah, right? Body of water that brings actually purity, right? The laws of impurity imparted by a human corpse. I thought we said, okay, that's what we're doing now. We're coming back to that. They include one positive commandment, the laws governing impurity imparted by a human corpse. The mitzvahs explained in the ensuing chapters. Okay,
Rabbi,
halacha number 1.
Rabbi, it's not on
Yes.
the screen yet.
Not what?
We can't see it on the screen.
Oh, you know why? Because I didn't share it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for speaking up. Okay. See things that you do out of rote, sometimes you don't. All right, there we go. Okay, here we are. A human corpse imparts ritual impurity that persists for a minimum of 7 days when it's touched or carried, or when one is under the same structure, an oihel as it's called, right? So 3 ways. You touch a human corpse. You carried it by not touching it. Let's say it was on a stretcher, right? Like, if you're urgent santé and you're going and God forbid, and someone dies and you're carrying them, you didn't touch them, right? That's also a way. Another is that you're just in the same room that has, right? When you go to the Rebbe's oil, it's open. The roof is open. So the impurity isn't contained in the room. Even though when it comes to holy people, there isn't impurity, but that's the way it's done. Okay. Impurity imparted by touching a corpse or being under the same structure is explicitly mentioned in the Torah. It says, one who touches a corpse of a human being will be impure for 7 days. And anyone who enters a tent or anything in the tent will be impure for 7 days. So it's a clear verse in the Torah, right? The impurity stemming from carrying a human corpse is derived from the oral tradition. Now, the fact that it's derived from the oral tradition doesn't mean it's biblical. It's rabbinic, it's biblical. It's just part of the oral tradition rather than a very clear verse written in the Torah. It's still a biblical law. It is based on an inference from a lesser matter to a more severe one. Because one of the ways, as we, every morning before prayer, before we start the communal prayer, we say the 13 principles of Rabbi Yishmael. And one of the 13 principles of Rabbi Yishmael is called the Kal V'chomer, from a lesser to a more, as he says over here, more severe. If the law applies to the lesser instance, then it applies to the more severe instance, right? That's a principle, right? So now let's see over here. If the carcass of an animal makes a person impure only until the evening, but does not cause a person to incur spiritual impurity when under the same shelter, and yet causes him to become to incur impurity when carrying it. Okay, did you follow what I just said? Listen to me. Listen, don't read it right now. Listen to me. touching, getting impure by a carcass of an animal is not as severe. What's the proof? You're only impure until that night. You go to the mikvah, right? But if you touch or in the structure of a human, it's 7 days. Obviously, that's more severe. That's lesser. So we got that principle, lesser, right?
Mhm.
So now if something's going to apply to the lesser, and in their same idea of impurity, right? We're not talking about other worlds, right? Same idea of laws of impurity. So if it applies to the lesser, then for sure it's going to apply to the more severe. So it says clearly in Leviticus that one who carries a carcass, right, that you become impure. Carcass of an animal.
Okay.
So that's the lesser,
Yeah.
right? We call, a human we call a corpse. An animal we call a carcass, right?
Yes.
Right. So if it applies, the Torah says clearly to a carcass when you carry it, all the more so it would be the more severe one that it will apply there too. Right? Is that clear? So that's called the Kal V'chomer, right? In other words, we're learning it out from this principle from the lesser to the more severe. Okay. And the process of reasoning continues. Okay, didn't finish there. If touching an animal carcass causes one to become impure until the evening, and carrying it causes a person to be impure until the evening, so too, since touching a corpse, human, right, causes a person to become impure for 7 days, it should cause him to become impure for 7 days if he carries it. So he's bringing the argument even, the reasoning even more so. The reasoning is going further, meaning, well, maybe it's only for 1 day then. If you carried the corpse, maybe it should only be for 1 day because you're learning it from a law that's only for 1 day, right? The carcass is only 1 day, right? So then maybe the principle should only teach us for 1 day. Carrying is considered more of an act of impurity than touching, right? Well, think about it. You touch a person rather than carrying the person. What's more intimate, if you will? It's a corpse, right? It's not intimate, but you understand what's closer is carrying than it is touching. That you just touch like this, like that, compared to carrying it without touching, though. But you're carrying. It's more
indirect because you're carrying it, you're not necessarily touching directly the body.
So it's not. But what's more of a again, I don't know what the word's not intimacy over here because it's not an intimacy, right? But what would be more of a live person, more intimate? What's more of a connection to a person? When you just touch them like this or you carry the person? Obviously carrying the person, right? So by touching, you're impure for 7 days. All the more so you'll be impure for carrying, even though we're only learning it from the carcass, which is only for 1 day. So it's a double point over here. I hope I explained that. You got it? Okay, amazing. Is it not on the screen? Is anybody watching it online?
No, it's not on the screen again.
Okay, but it is now?
Yes.
Okay, because I went out of it for a second. I guess when you go out, it immediately shows it. I thought it was. Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, now it goes further. The impurity resulting from carrying a corpse is not considered rabbinic origin. I mentioned that, right? But instead, a scriptural law, right? Even though it's the rabbis who learned this out, right? When it says clearly in the Torah something, so then that's for sure scriptural. But if it's the sages who are learning it out because of a principle, So you might think that it's rabbinic. No, it's not. It's scriptural law. It appears to me that the scripture remains silent concerning the type of impurity in the same way that it remains silent concerning the prohibition against relations with one's daughter, because it explicitly forbade relations with the daughter of one's daughter. And it remains silent concerning the prohibition against partaking of meat cooked with milk. And it remains silent concerning the prohibition against partaking of the meat cooked with milk, because it explicitly forbade cooking it.
Okay.
Similarly, scripture did not mention the impurity incurred by carrying a human corpse, because it explicitly mentioned the one who is under the same shelter as a corpse incurs impurity. Thus, one can infer that it certainly applies to one who carries it. Okay, so now he's going even further, that to make sure that don't think that this is then of a rabbinic nature, origin, right, of carrying the corpse, but it's scriptural law. So he explains. In other words, the Torah, listen over here. Don't look now. The Torah was silent when it came to carrying the corpse. Didn't say anything. So maybe it's silent because it's not included, right? Yes, we made so he said, well, we see other instances where the Torah is silent, right? Where the Torah said you're not allowed to have relations with your daughter's daughter. Well, all the more so with your daughter. So why did it remain silent? It didn't mean to me remain silent that it's okay. Right there, it's clear. If with your granddaughter you can't have relations, all the more so with your own daughter you can't have relations. I mean, that because it's a closer relationship, right? Right. So all the more so.
It's meant to be deduced. Meaning
That's for sure meant to be deduced, right?
Exactly.
Here it's not as obvious that it's meant to be deduced. In our instance of caring, right? But there it's obvious, right? You can't. But that teaches us that Torah sometimes is silent about something, right? Because we'll deduce it. Furthermore, Torah is silent about eating a mixture of milk and meat. It only says, "Do not lois vashel." Don't cook the milk and the kids and the milk and the mother's milk and the kid of the mother's milk in the kid, right? That's what it says in the verse. Never said about eating. Never says about eating in the Torah. Don't eat it, right? Well, if you can't cook it, all the more so you can't eat it, right? Or the more so you can't do that. Again, it remains silent. The silence wasn't that it was omitting it. The silence was to kind of tell us, deduce it. But are you not deducing it because it's rabbinic law? You're deducing it from the scripture, from the Torah. That's where the deduction is being made, right?
Mhm.
So therefore, that's what he says in the end. Similarly, the Torah did not tell us about carrying a human corpse. Wow, this was a very interesting Rambam. We don't have this kind of teachings of the way he's going through the methodology over here. Now, this last part I'm not getting clear, because he's saying in this last, similarly, the scripture did not mention purity of carrying the human corpse, because explicitly mentioned the one who was under the same shelter, that person incurs an impurity. We just spoke about touching. Now, why is it coming to this? This last part, I must say, I don't get. Okay. I'm not certain what, because before it was about touching. If touching, then all the more so. Now he's bringing it to being under the same structure, right? That's the idea of a tent. I'm not clear on that. So that from there you can infer the carrying also. Why do we change it? here. Okay, we're going to go further. Number 3. Okay. The impurity incurred by touching, mentioned in all situations, whether involved a human corpse or other sources of impurity, is brought about by the person touching the corpse, the source of impurity itself. Whether he touches it with his flesh, his hand, his foot, or any other portion of the body, even with his tongue, he becomes impure. I don't know, why is tongue even? I would think even more so.
Mhm.
Okay. Similarly, it appears to me that if a person touches a source of impurity with his nail or with his teeth, he becomes impure. Because nails grow out, so they're not really you. You cut them, they don't have, they don't pain you, right? Unless you like your long nails.
Like hair.
Huh?
Would it be like hair? It grows.
Yeah, but touching with your hair. How you touching with your nail? You might have a long nail and you've touched it. Or with your teeth fall out also, so therefore it's not considered permanence. The idea is that nail and teeth are not considered permanence, especially back in the day. People didn't, even their grown teeth didn't last so long, right? That's the point he's making over here, right? That even that, which is not really so-called you, right? In the permanence of you, right? Nonetheless, you become impure. The rationale is that they are connected to the body, and they're considered as a body itself, right? Okay, that makes sense. Interesting how he's forewarning everything here. Right? If, however, a person took a source of impurity, skewed it with a weave needle, and inserted it into his throat of the person who is ritually pure without touching his tongue. You took it on a needle and you put it, but you didn't touch. If you touch, then you touch, but you didn't touch. It just went into the cavity of your mouth. That's what he's talking about, right? Without touching the tongue or inserting it in the womb of a woman from below without touching her flesh. I don't know how that would happen, how that's possible, but whatever. The person who swallowed the majority of the impurity does not become impure because of the inner organs became in contact with the source of impurity. So I don't know how you could swallow it without it touching your tongue. I have no idea how this is in a physical reality, but if there were such a reality, I mean, it must be that you would, in other words, the fact that it did touch you inside of your organs doesn't make you impure. It has to touch you of you.
Yeah.
Right. So it means your tongue, your teeth, right? Well, no, like for example, let's say a coin. Actually, I think he'll give this example. Yeah, I understand. Let's say there was an impure coin and it was in a cookie. The cookie was pure. Or a small little, and you downed it. You took some, water and like a pill. So you didn't touch you, but it dissolves inside inside of you. Doesn't make you impure. I think we're gonna have these kind of examples actually. Okay. Yeah, that's the point. No, but if it was a coin that was impure, but not the cookie, and it was inside the cookie, so it didn't touch your tongue. The cookie touched your tongue, and then you just took it like a pill, and you just with water and you just swallowed it. A small little, right?
Mhm.
That wouldn't make so. Does that make you pure or not impure? So you're not impure because it didn't touch anything of your outer being, or like a tongue was also considered outer because you can stick it out,
Mhm.
right? So a person who swallows the does not become impure because of the inner organs came in contact with the source of impurity. The rationale contact between the source of impurity and one's inner organs is not considered as touch. That's not called touch. Your tongue touched it, but to say your stomach touched it, that's not called touch. right? Because why? You would never say that. Oh, my stomach touched you.
Exactly.
Not my stomach. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
my intestines touched you. No,
Exactly.
you wouldn't say that. You'd say my elbow touched you. You'd say my teeth touched you, right?
Yeah.
My tongue touched you. That you could say because the word in it says is touch.
Yeah.
So it has to be something that's related to touch. Your organs, your intestines are not touch.
Incredible.
Unbelievable.
It's just,
That would
Yeah.
allow for medical procedures, like to touch the organ with something, maybe medicine or something.
What do you mean?
Kosher.
You mean oh,
I mean, yeah.
from here we for example, the example from there, like to eat something not kosher, what is called eating? Is it in your mouth? No, it went down your throat and you had pleasure from it. So if you took something and it was not something you had pleasure from it, so it becomes a different question, right? The prohibition is in it, right? It becomes a different now, right? That's the biblical prohibition, right? So, right. So that's that, but that because no, that's because it's not going down your throat. So you're not having benefit, you're not having pleasure from it. That's a needle. That would be a different category, right? So it could be, you could get a needle and it has something from a pig in there, right? That's not kosher because it's not by way of your throat.
that would be okay.
That would be okay, right? Or, yeah, I mean, that would be okay. It would be okay even if you needed it to save your life, even have it as food that's not kosher, but is now healing you, and this is the way you need to be healed. Even that would be permissible. Okay. Okay. We're going to stop here. Whoa, powerful stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rabbi.
God bless you. Oh, thank you. I received your letter
Great.
and its
Awesome. Thank
contents.
you.
God bless you. Thank you.
God bless you.
All right, folks.